Okay, so I'm just going to do a quick tutorial and kind of give you guys a process for modeling your shapes to create the volume, the box. So I'm inside the file that I've drawn my like mapping things in. And what I want to do in order to generate the individual faces of the box that I need to cut out, I'm actually just going to model a box first. So I'm going to make myself a new layer. And I'm going to model a box. I'll just use the command box, click somewhere, and then I'll enter the dimensions. So 3 by 10 by 5. Now, if I hold Control Shift on the keyboard, right click and drag, I can orbit around in my Paraline view, in my top view. So this is my box. This is the dimensions I want that volume to be cut out at. And it should be the dimensions you basically drew your elevations at. And what I want to do is take this set of surfaces and explode them. So I'll use the explode command. I can delete the top one. So this is basically the box I'm going to build, the volume I'm going to build, that I can use as the kind of shape to cast into. And then the next step is to kind of lay them all flat, lay them all out flat again. So what I would do for that is I would take this box and I'm going to use the command unroll surf. It'll ask me which surfaces I want to unroll, all of them. Oops, actually, if you join these first and then unroll them, it'll ask you if you want to explode it. That you want to leave set to yes. Labels, you can leave that set to no because it's a pretty simple shape. We don't need a lot of labels to know what's going on. And then at the origin of your file, at the 0, 0 point, you should see them all laid out kind of in a row like that. And I'm just going to pull these aside. Okay, and the last thing I want to do, so now I'm going to switch back into top view. So I'll just type in top in the command line and press enter. So these are still surfaces, right? So what I need to do is I need to get the curves. I'm also going to quickly move this to a better spot. There we go. Okay. So what I need to do is turn these surfaces, the edges of these surfaces, back into curves. So I'm going to use the command dupe order. Select all the surfaces and press enter. And you can see it gave me a closed outline for each one of these surfaces. So then I can delete the surfaces. The other thing I want to do here is I want to compensate for the thickness of the material that I'm building this box out of. So what I'm going to do is generate like a little kind of sawtooth pattern. Not really complex, but I want to give the acrylic like a way to interlock at the edges when I assemble this thing as a physical model, so that they're kind of being held together precisely, and we're not going to get like, you know, massive amounts of plaster leakage coming out from between the coming out from the seams between the surfaces. So first I would take I'll start with this curve. I'm just going to explode the curve because I need to do this I need to treat the edges kind of independently. Let's say I want to draw a little sawtooth thing on this one. So what I would do is use the command divide, select that curve, number of segments, I'm going to choose like 6. And I would recommend you give it like an even number of subdivisions on every edge. I also would recommend you use a minimum number of subdivisions. I'll explain that when I get to the shorter edges. But now I've generated a bunch of points along this curve. I'll take the curve and I'll use the command split. I'll select the points, press enter. So now I have individual segments. And I can go ahead and offset them. So I'm going to choose to cap it. So under cap, I want to choose flat. And under distance, I'm going to enter the thickness of the material, which is 0.125 or 1/8 of an inch. And then I'll select this curve and I'll offset. And what that will do is, you know, like on the opposite edge, of the bottom, I'll make the opposite pattern, and that way when they come together at the joint, they'll kind of interlock and hold together in the right position. So once I've created those new offset edges, I would just select them, explode them. I can just delete that one curve and then join the whole thing. And now I have one kind of sawtooth edge. So I will do the same thing for my vertical, divide. For this one, I'm going to choose fewer segments, so I'll go with 4. Split it, and offset half of them. Okay, again, explode. Okay. So now I can also copy this. Let's see, I'll delete that. Excuse me, I'll delete that edge first. Use the command copy, move it over here. I also want to rotate it. Again, I'm holding shift to rotate it 180 on ortho. And that way I have a kind of opposite on each edge. Now I'm also going to use the command SEL, select PT points, to select all those points I created when I divided, and I'll just delete them. Okay, so there we have one. Then I would do the same thing for this. So I'm also going to say, like, if you do these in the right order, obviously you can use the same pattern for both of the long sides and the short sides, etc. So I'm going to use this as a guide to model this. Let's say this edge is coming into that edge. So I'll do the same thing, explode, take this edge, divide it into 4, split it by those points, and I want the opposite segments to be offset, and then join everything. Now for this edge, I'm actually going to use a different, let me just delete the points real quick. There we go. I delete that, again, make a copy, rotate it, just like that, so that if I were to come in here on the other side, again, that one's going to line up. So I'm going to use this shape for both the long sides and both the short sides. And then the last thing I want to do is also make a segment for the bottom. And I'm actually going to say, I'm going to use the same number of segments, 4. Split the curve with the points. Just because, like I said, it's going to make more sense in assembly if I keep the same number of, if I keep an even number of edges, or like teeth, or whatever you want to call it. And I probably want more than one on this edge, just so that I can kind of hold it in place better. So I'm going to do the same with there, 4 teeth. And then with this guy, I'm going to bring him down and line him up. Explode. I'm also going to rotate this one. Oops. And kind of line it up. Okay. And that way I can tell that I'm kind of doing this properly. So, divide, 6 segments, split, and offset. Join it. Same thing for this side. Four segments. Split it. Okay, so we can verify that it's going to line up with the corresponding edge on the other two faces. And then I could take both of these curves, copy them, or I could actually just rotate them. Set the option to copy to yes, rotate 180, and then line them up. Oops. Okay. Join, so now I'm done setting these all up. So I could join them together into one. Okay. Right there. And then I'll make another copy of these, right? Now I think the amount of material I told you needed was about 9 by 22 or something. So let's try this, 22 by 9. Just making a rectangle to kind of lay it out. And I believe if we take both of the short ends, rotate them, oops. Okay, and so you should be able to fit everything within that bounding geometry, or with that amount of material. All right, and then the last thing I want to do is I want to take the elevations that I've drawn in Rhino. Now I need to set up the appropriate, layer colors and stuff so that I can laser cut this. So what I would do is I would take these outlines, put them on their own layer. So I'm going to make a new layer, call it cut. I'm going to change object layer. I'm going to give that a color. So as I'm sure you guys are familiar, there's specific colors we can use. I'm going to use the red for cut. And then down here, I'm going to delete my construction lines. I could take this whole drawing, and I'll delete the outline. And I would also use this outline and delete the stuff that's overlapping it. Stuff I don't need. Okay. And I'm just going to place these. So these ones I need to rotate. Directly into my cut file. Okay, and then we want to put that stuff on a layer or give it a color. So right now these are all on kind of different layers because they're using different line types. So we don't want to mess that up. So we're going to leave them on their own layer, but we want to set the color to something else so that we can kind of cut these as an etch, where we're like, scoring the material but not cutting all the way through. So I'm going to go here and set that to cyan or green or whatever. And there we go. And then I can set up a separate, cut properties for these lines so that I just score them lightly into the surface. And then when I assemble the box, I'll have this kind of, these lines as a guide to how to insert the subtractive material when I go to pour. And that should be it for this tutorial. So I will sign off.